Okay, let's take a look at the second part of this chapter that looks at how listening can be challenging. So what we're going to take a look at, it's another short section. What are the challenges? What are the things that can get in the way of us being an effective listener? And this section of the chapter starts out looking back to chapter 5 and the idea of perception, all right? So it says, when two people are listening to a speaker, we assume that they are both getting the same message. But think of all the things that are going on that might cause the communicator to hear a different message. Psychological and physiological factors, social roles, cultural background, personal interests, and needs are some of the things that can get in the way, that can color what we hear. Okay, so what are some of the barriers in listening? All right, well, the cartoon shows cell phones can be a big barrier, right? You all know someone who is so tied to their phone that they are unaware of what's going on around them. But that's not one of the things that the chapter says directly. So we're really looking at 4 things that can be barriers. And the one of them is information overload. Like we are truly bombarded with information all day long, from what's on TV or what we are listening to on our whatever you have in your iPod, on your phone, on your computer, conversations that are going on with people sitting next to you or at your workplace, or it's amazing that we can pay attention to anything at all with the amount that we're hearing. We get fatigued. Okay, personal concerns. If you have something on your mind, it is very difficult to focus, to really attend to what is going on. All right. This third point I found extremely interesting, that the average person can understand, well, it says people are capable of understanding speech that is at about 600 words per minute. That's pretty fast. We're not saying that you could take notes on this, but you could understand what someone is saying. However, most people speak between 100 and 140 words per minute, which means that we can hear and process 4 to 6 times faster than most people speak. I'm going to guess that you might not be aware of it, except if you're listening to someone who speaks slowly and deliberately. In a sense, there's an awful lot of space in between words for you to, your brain goes elsewhere and you think about other things. And when you're thinking about other things, you're truly not listening. And the last one is noise. If you remember back to chapter 1, that Stewie Griffin model of communication, where we had those wiggly arrows coming down. This is noise that gets in the way of communication. It can be actual physical noise, things that are going on in the environment, and an alarm, a lot of wind. It can be things like psychological noises because you're worried about something. Okay, or if you're tired, you have an earache, then you've got the kind of physiological noises that are going on. So these are 4 factors that all of us have to deal with and that can potentially keep us from really being an effective listener. So I want to tell you about a few poor listening habits, and I want you to think of the ones that you do. The first one, the spell check does not like this word. It's pseudo listening, and pseudo means fake. So pseudo listening is when someone is talking and you're smiling and nodding and looking interested and you are not paying attention. Okay. So stage hogging, in a sense, isn't even listening at all. It is just um, you are the one who is saying you're taking center stage, right? So when my daughter was, I'm going to say 5, I think she was in kindergarten, we were visiting my parents, and my father loved this story. He said that she came into the kitchen. He was sitting at the kitchen table, and she came in and she told him about her classes and her friends and the ballet tap jazz class she was taking, and talked and talked and talked. And then she looked at him and she said, well, enough about me. And she left the room. Classic stage hogging. Although she was only 5. She wasn't really doing it deliberately. Okay. Selective listening is where you are selecting what you're going to listen to. So you're kind of phased out until you hear a word that you're interested in. Money. What? Money? And then all of a sudden you start listening. Okay. Filling in the gaps is, a lot of us do this when you have not listened carefully, and so your mind puts in the information that you assume the person said. So you have some information, but you don't have all of it, and you say, well, based on my knowledge of this person in the world, this is probably what they said, which maybe isn't. Okay. I think of insulated listening as kind of the opposite of selective listening. With insulated listening, you're listening to the message, and then as soon as somebody brings up a topic that you're not really interested in, you tune out. I had a colleague who hated Walmart. So we'd be having this great conversation, I don't know, about literature and whatever. And I'd be listening and engaged. And then she would say, oh, and then Walmart. And I would then go into pseudo listening. Oh, wow. Not hearing a word she was saying because I was insulating myself against that information. All right. Defensive listening. I think of this as pretty typical for adolescents, where a person hears an innocent comment as an attack. So let's say, my daughter's out with her friends when she was, 18, and the next, it's a Saturday night. And so when I see her on Sunday afternoon, I say something like, wow, you got in late last night. Whoa, you're always on my case. You don't trust me. Like, whoa, I didn't say that. Okay. And then the last of all, ambushing is, if you ever watched dramas that take place in a courtroom, this is what happens in cross-examination, that the lawyer is listening to what someone is saying with the intention of using that information to attack the person. Sometimes this also happens in relationships where, you hear some information and you store it away. And then when somebody, when your romantic partner says something to you, you say, oh yeah, well, remember 2 years ago when you said blah, blah, blah? That's an example of ambushing. Okay. So here are my questions for you. What are the 4 barriers to listening? And can you actually think of a time that you've experienced each of them? And then what are the 7 poor listening habits? Think about, you can think about all of them, but at least think specifically about one, possibly one that you use frequently. And I don't want you to tell me times you got away with it. I want you to tell me about issues that it has caused you. Okay, that was section 2. Another short section, and we will go on to section 3 in a little while.